Morning, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday Night Talk with Executive Director Lee Reed. My name is Melissa Jean Baptiste, the Communications Specialist for the ACRB. And if you are unfamiliar with who we are at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our Executive Director Lee Reed to give you a brief overview before we get into the topic for tonight. Take it away, Lee.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for the introduction. Um, the Atlanta Citizen Review Board, ACRB, it is an independent investigative agency of the city of Atlanta, authorized to receive, investigate, mediate citizen complaints against Atlanta police and corrections officers. Um, One of the things that we really take a strong interest in is also community engagement and education. And tonight, we are going to be talking exactly about that community education. Melissa?
Tonight we have a few guests with us that have joined the ACRB and our initiative that we had with our initiative that we had with Morehouse and with Mercer University. We're going to go ahead and give them a moment to introduce themselves. But before we do that, I apologize. Let me get them pulled up here. We have the Know Your Rights program, the Know Your Rights program
Melissa,
educators.
because let's keep it real. I messed up the talking point because I was supposed to introduce you all and then let you all speak. So I'm going to go back to what I was supposed to do. You know, every show is like this. I jump ahead, I move around. But anyway, tonight, as I was saying earlier, we're talking about our community education piece, and we're really going to dig into a program, as Melissa just stated, that we worked in collaboration with Mercer University and Morehouse and the ACRB, how to get information to citizens, particularly our youth, in the Atlanta public school systems related to police interactions. And tonight we have with us Dr. Justin Ballenger, Dr. Felicia Baiden, and Mr. Marcus Copeland. And we're going to take a few minutes, well, seconds, to let them be able to just speak briefly about themselves before we kick into our program. And the program is the Educators Fellows program that we initiated last summer that was implemented during the school year. But ladies first, Dr. Baiden.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Felicia Baiden, Assistant Professor of Elementary Education at Mercer University. And I also served as a faculty coordinator for the Atlanta Citizens Review Board Educator Fellows Program. And so through that program, I supported K-12 educators with professional learning on the ACRB Know Your Rights curriculum to support youth in knowing what their rights are and how to positively engage with police officers.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, whoever would like to go next?
Oh, please, Mr. Copeland.
Oh, okay. I'm Marcus Copeland. I'm currently a special ed teacher at Tuskegee Airmen Global Academy. Specifically, I work with students that have behavior disorders, emotional behavior disorders. And so that is my current position there at TAG. I'll be shifting over to social and emotional learning next year. And I look forward to integrating the Know Your Rights curriculum school-wide versus class-wide.
All right.
And hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Justin Ballenger. I'm Assistant Professor of STEM Education, also the Deputy Director of the Data Science Initiative at the Atlanta University Center. I have just been excited about this opportunity to work with the ACRB, Director Reed, Dr. Baiden, and Mr. Copeland, and other educators on the Educator Fellows Project, and also collaborating with the ACRB on some data science initiatives so that we can track data around police interactions and keep the community informed. So just excited to share this information this evening.
Thank you. So, Dr. Ballenger, you know, last summer, well, actually in the spring, we started putting our heads together thinking about how we could share this information about police interactions with the youth, right? And through that collaboration, we designed the Educators Fellows program that would facilitate, well, first, it would create a curriculum for students with the teachers helping create the curriculum based off of some of the ACRB's work, and then bring in some AP Atlanta Public School educators to come in and help us further develop it, and then with the hope and intent of implementing it so that the program curriculum could be taught in APS schools. So I'm going to start with you. From your perspective, what was the driving force or the need that you saw in wanting to bring this forward?
Well, I think as we went through the pandemic, we saw a lot of instances where there were police interactions, particularly with men of color, that turned out in many of those cases fatalities, like we saw in Atlanta. And as an educator, although I'm in STEM education, and also being a father of two sons, that's just something that really spoke to me. And as part of the work that I was doing during that summer, actually, I was in another city fellowship where I actually met Director Reed, and we were talking around some of these issues of policing and community engagement. And just being in that mode as a professor, thinking about education, this is something that is very important to our youth. We tend to focus on the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but life skills such as how do you interact with police and make sure that these situations don't go in a direction that ends negatively can be something that's very important for youth. And so as we continue having those conversations through the Urban Leaders Fellowship, and I was introduced to the work that Director Reed was doing, I was just inspired to reach out to him and see how, as a university professor in teacher education, we might be able to collaborate on getting this into schools. And thankfully, Director Reed had an open ear, and we were able to talk over the months and determine that some revisions to the curriculum, and working particularly in the Atlanta public schools where this work is focused, particularly looking at youth being at the center of many of these interactions with police that end in violence, that there were many things that we could do as a standpoint of collaboration between education and the ACRB to support youth. And we came up with the idea for the Educator Fellows Project, and talked with many of our colleagues about how we could make it happen. And thankfully we were able to spur this collaboration among K-12, many of our colleagues in higher education, the Atlanta Police Department, and again with the ACRB helping to spearhead this entire program. And so it's just been a joy to see the impact on the youth and teachers that have been involved with this.
Thank you, Dr. Ballenger. Dr. Baiden, so you came in helping us with this program and managed it throughout the year. And when we talked about from your perspective, the impact and importance of it, what comes to mind to you?
So when I think of the impact and the importance of the ACRB Know Your Rights curriculum and the program and the Educator Fellows program, I just think about, echoing a lot of what Dr. Ballenger stated about just, what has happened, what's been going on for years, but what has really been highlighted, through the pandemic with, violence and police interactions with people of color specifically. But I also think, in addition to that, like, it's our job to support our students and keeping them safe. I used to always tell my elementary school students, that's my #1 job, to keep you safe. And so in an effort to keep our students safe, we have to equip them with the knowledge and also the skill set to be able to positively engage with police officers. We also have to support them as citizens in knowing what their rights are and knowing beforehand, before they have an encounter with a police officer, so they can apply this knowledge. And also, I think it's very important because they need to know what the ACRB is. So if they ever have a police encounter, they know they have some form of recourse to lean on for support. And that's important because we want our students, our youth, to feel empowered. we want them to know that not only do their lives matter, but also their voices and their concerns. So that's a very critical piece.
Mhm.
And so with that, it's important that our students, that they become informed and engaged citizens who can not only advocate for themselves, but for their families and others in their community. And so, for example, when we had our ACRB Know Your Rights culminating activity, it was called We Know Our Rights, a celebration of our learning. So various students expressed how this curriculum has impacted them in their learning. And students mentioned that, hey, I went home and I shared this information with my family, with my friends, information they didn't know. And so just to hear, we wanted that to have that type of impact on our students and our youth, but to hear that directly from the mouths of the youth, I mean, that is just extremely phenomenal. And so to your question about why is this important, because we want to keep our students safe. We want them to be informed and engaged citizens who can advocate for themselves and others.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Copeland, you know, I want to turn to you for a second because I got a couple of questions for you, especially you were in the classroom teaching us. Now, some may ask why we start so young, and Justin and Dr. Baiden, you may want to chime in on this one too. Why we thought it was important to start at the level we did, you know, with the 6th through 8th graders, 6th and 7th graders, as opposed to saying 11th or 12th graders. You know, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, well, I was a part of it, but I want to be able to tell you, you know, you guys to explain it. Why we thought that would be a good age to be able to introduce this program.
I think it's good because it should be a foundational skill. You know what I mean? Because when you talk about community helpers, you talk about police, firemen, doctors and stuff like that. But we go to the doctor, we see a positive interaction with doctors. So, most people, they respect firemen, but the police officer is often left out as the odd man, and he's the enemy in certain communities. You feel what I'm saying? Because it's not always like that, and I've seen the difference in different communities, and it's not color based, it's a mindset. You feel what I'm saying? So
Right.
I see it as if you started in, let's say, elementary, kindergarten, and it builds up. So now when these, because typically, when you have children, they're going to be out with their parents most of the time, but now we're in the advent of the cell phone, we're having students that are out at much earlier ages by themselves, or even if they're in a mall or something like that, you have police officers in a mall. And so now when it's a foundational skill, they're actually building that from a young age. So now by the time they're in high school, it's common. You feel what I'm saying? There's no stigma to the police. They're a community that's Mr. Reed. That's not a police officer. You feel what I'm saying? So it humanizes the uniform. You feel what I'm saying? And so, my father is an Atlanta police officer. He is retired now. So, my vantage point is, it correlates, but it's different because he's my stepfather, but I don't do step. But anyway, prior to my mom marrying him, I had a stigma to the police. You feel what I'm saying? But once she was married to an officer, now police officers became human to me, and I saw the other side of it, and he taught me the different perspectives. So again, go back to the point, I think we should teach it from a base level so that now it's a part of life. So a police officer is a community helper, and this is how you interact with a police officer. This is bad policing, this is good policing. So just like, we do the firemen and the doctors and everything like that, it adds that piece to it, because we do talk about them in pre-primary, preschool, kindergarten. Exactly. You know what I mean? So so yes.
And Dr. Baiden, you brought up something that was very important too, about the and this relates to the starting young piece, the empowerment. Not only your voice matter, not only your lives matter, but your voice and concerns matter as well. And that's how we build that civic involvement, that civic engagement, that civic understanding of civic responsibility. And starting it young, that look, you have a right to participate and have services that the government provides you, provided to you in a way that is respectful, in a way that acknowledges your humanness, as you work to be uh, uh, um, um, a, a, a functioning part of society. You
Mhm.
know, so Mr. Copeland, uh, so one of the things um, when you were introducing this to your students, what were their initial reactions to, well, you know, that first day when you said, hey, we're going to talk about the, you know, this, you know, ACRB police interactions and things like that. What were their initial reactions to that?
They were very interested in it because my students live in the inner city, and so they've been exposed to a little bit more than I would think the average child would have seen, as far as, like, street life, for just a lack of a better term. So
Mhm.
they were excited because some of the things they knew, some of the things they did not know, but they were excited to know about the ACRB, because they felt like, okay, wow, there's somebody that can fight for me. And I'm like, yes, there's somebody you can actually go, if you feel that the police did you wrong, there's somebody that, can fight for you. So that was a big piece. And as far as like the interaction piece, they really wanted to do role play to kind of like synthesize that. So they took that and ran with it. But the biggest piece, I think, was to just know that there was somebody that they can talk to about, if about the police, basically, because a lot of people, well, a lot of the students, excuse me, felt like they feel like the police are absolute. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So they're a silent voice. So that was a big deal.
You know, and very good points, because and the video that your students put together that they did was just awesome. You know, I want to be able to get that out to the public, because I mean, they shared some insight that was just great, and and it was just good hearing them absorb, hearing that they absorbed the information, they understood the information, and want to include it in their life. You know, because we are talking about life skills. You know, so I think that's important. You know,
I think
that was great. That was definitely great, Dr. Ballenger.
I had a
Um, so from the very beginning all the way through the end, um, what was the biggest highlights for you out of this educators fellows program?
Um, Again, I think I would just reach back to the point that Dr. Baiden made about empowering the youth and the educators that were part of this program. I think really having them understand that in a representative democracy, public safety is not just policing, and that government or whatever institution you're in, even being a student in a school, isn't something that's done to you. That again, your voice matters, and that you have a say in what goes on in the community, and that there are levers that even when you feel something has been done wrong, there's a process for being able to rectify that situation. And so for students to be able to learn about what those processes are, how do you deal with the situation? So maybe not in that moment, but later on, that there's some retribution, or that this is put right, that for students to understand that and for that to be something that's empowering for them, is very, very important for students, especially at that young age, so that we don't have to unlearn bad behaviors, but we're
Mhm.
coming in with those good behaviors and understanding of the world around us that allow us to navigate in a much more powerful way.
I
And
also think that it's really important. I'm sorry, Lee,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
just to interject, because it brings to me a really good statement that another guest on our show, that we had an actual police officer, a Black police officer, because we are speaking in terms of color and things like that. Tyrone Dennis made the point of two things. Uh, Making sure when we speak to kids, I think it's important that we start with this age group, like you said, and we provide the right conversation, because a big point that he mentioned was, with parents, sometimes they may do it mistakenly, trying to get their children to cooperate in the car, like calling out the police officer and saying, hey, if you don't sit down, I'm going to get that officer to come get you. And that's a behavior that is learned, which, growing up will contribute to other things, and that bad relationship, the hard relationship that our youth has with police officers. So I think it's really important, like you all are saying, to make sure that younger demographic grow into a healthy relationship with you know, the officers within our community and things like that. And to add to the point of what Copeland said, Mr. Copeland, it's not only about, you know, color. That was a Black officer letting us know how, you know, we can switch that relationship that we have, and, you know, just with the words that we use. So it starts with, you know, our mentors and our teachers, and also with parents, to make sure that our children have healthy conversations and healthy relationships with police officers. So I just think that's something really important that was mentioned before from Tyrone Dennis of Clippers and Cops, which was really good.
And to piggyback off of what you're saying and referencing Mr. Copeland, you know, that thought that, you know, the police power is absolute.
Mhm.
You know, that, well, the police did it to me, nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's something you can do about it. You know, you can report it, you can tell somebody, so that we can make sure that officers are serving the community the way they're supposed to be serving the community.
Right.
You know, so I think that's an important message that the youth need to get, and adults need to get as well. Dr. Baiden, for you, what were the highlights of the program that you saw that you thought, okay, this is really cool?
So there were like two major highlights for me. And so the first one occurred last summer when we had the week of professional learning for ACRB educator fellows. And so to have the opportunity so of course, as you already mentioned, we discussed the curriculum and how we can revise it, tweak it to make it relevant and meaningful for the learners in the various contexts that were represented there. But in addition to that curriculum, the educator fellows and also women, we all had the opportunity to engage with various community stakeholders, from ACRB board members, Atlanta City Council officials, state legislators, police lieutenants, police sergeants. And so we had an opportunity to learn from, learn with, to engage in critical dialogue about how we can collaboratively support and educate our youth on knowing what their rights are and knowing how to stay safe. I think that piece was so monumental for me, because it's rare that you get all those different people in one room, in one space. So that was one of my highlights. A second highlight was just, again, the culminating event, and just, we knew what we hoped for going into this program, but actually to see it come into fruition was just actually so heartwarming and just so amazing.
Yes.
And so hearing the students sharing their highlights, what they gleaned from the program, and how they're going to take up what they've learned, and also to see them to express their learning in so many different creative ways. We had skits, we had like an interview style format.
Right.
We had students asking questions, and a lot of them very critical questions. And so just seeing the various ways that students creatively express their learning was just another major highlight for me.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Copeland, what was, as the one in the classroom working with the curriculum and with the students, what were the highlights for you?
I would say just the feedback and the conversations, and then, you know, just how aware the students are of what's going on, you know. And so when you talk to them, you know, they're actually, you see the little person in them, you know what I mean? And it kind of blurs the line between student, you know what I mean? I don't know if you understand what I mean, but it's like you know, you see their lives, and so just the conversations, and just to see how much fun they were having, like just acting it out and doing the role play and just expressing themselves. I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the fact that they were eager to speak up, and their questions were relevant, and, you know, and everything just was like, it was just beautiful to see that, you know, they have more to say. So it's like this program is really a segue, so that, you know, the students can, you know, I guess it'll be the teachers get an opportunity to really see what the students have to say, you know what I mean?
Right. And you know, the way I look at this, police teaching people about rights, as it relates to police interactions, is hopefully, as you said, that segue into creating that desire to want to being civically involved, you know, in voting, in serving on jury pools, and going down to city council to express your community's needs and concerns, and not having everything be happen to you, but actually driving things that occur in your communities as opposed to them just being imposed on you. So and I see policing as one of those, the ACRB and the understanding of policing interactions as one of those things that get people motivated related to this issue, but also that can grow into getting them motivated to address other issues in their community, you know, because once you understand that, okay, yes, we want to hold officers responsible, but we have a responsibility and rights as well. And let's, you know, it spreads out to other things in our community, you know, so that's the hope that that we can that can come out of this. I know we're running short on time, but so if we looking at the program, what would this be something that you would recommend to other educators, and how would you like to see this program grow in the future? This is for everybody. You can just chime in whenever you want to. Or I can roll the dice and just pick a number.
Well, I think with the way that we structured the program, I think we really did have growth in mind, partnering with the Atlanta Public Schools virtual education arm, and really thinking about how we could structure the curriculum and basically create a curriculum that could be transmitted as modules online that teachers could teach across APS. But once we developed a system that could be distributed across the district, this is something that we could actually share with other review boards and with other advocacy agencies across the country, so that as you speak about often, Director Reed, we're able to create a national model for how we're talking about these issues and what's inside of the classroom. And, you know, again, just being in the space that I'm in, I'm an advocate for breaking down those four walls of the classroom and making education relevant. And this is something that I don't think there's anything that gets more relevant than being able to protect yourself and make sure that you are surviving in situations that could be potentially life altering. And so taking this to something that students understand, that they're seeing in the news, that they're talking about at home, and bringing it into the school so they can have critical conversations and come to an understanding of how they might deal with these interactions in ways that are going to end in a positive way for them is just very important. And I think that we've done a fairly good job of structuring this curriculum so that it could be distributed across the district, and again, eventually be able to share it nationally so that more children and educators can have exposure to it.
Yes, yes, yes. You don't, and you said it the way I see it, Justin. And you know, it, we're doing things special here in Atlanta, and we want the nation to know about it, because we want to lead the way and show everybody how to get things done right. You know, Felicia, Marcus, either you
Yep,
want
Mr.
to
Copeland.
chime in?
Well, what I was going to add was, I echo Dr. Ballenger. What I would add is just how the way the curriculum is structured, it incorporates social and emotional learning standards within it. So it's actually built as a way to lower student anxiety and build, I would say, personal pride, I guess, for lack of better terms. And so I think you can integrate it, at small increments. You know what I mean? You can actually place it, and it's built to where, we have the PowerPoints and stuff, and that, and the lesson plan. So I think, it's feasible so that it can be, replicated within other classrooms. But my main point is that I think it can be a gift to the students to help them, feel better about themselves, within themselves, in the school and within the community, because I think the way it's built is that, it's going to allow for, I guess, student self-advocacy within school as well. So I think it leads into that type of situations, so I think it would be great. And I mean, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. You know what I mean? So it just becomes a part of their, their life, a schema for so that's what I would
And Marcus, one thing is this: we know this. Policing is that one government entity that can affect you 24 hours, 7 days a week, at any time, in any place. Because we as a society have given police officers that type of power. Now, if they abuse that power because they didn't follow protocol, process, procedures to be in your space and take your liberty, your life, that's something different. But because of what we as a society have said, there's at any point we can have contact with the police officer, old, young, at home, in church, at the doctor's office. It doesn't matter. If a police officer is able to get in that space, you may have contact with them. So when we talk about this life skill, this is something that you will always be able to rely on, because we're concerned about, as one of you said earlier, not just educating them about the books, but also educating them about life. Felicia, about keeping them safe doesn't just relate to just the classroom. It talks about in life. You know what I'm saying? So they can be productive and grow into being community members. That are living their life's dreams, type of thing. So Ms. Baiden, Dr. Baiden, I forgot my question because I was talking so much. But
say.
What would you like to
question,
see for
I'm
the
just saying,
curriculum,
is,
and how would you like to see
where
it
would you
grow?
like to see it go?
Well, again, it's been my pleasure to be able to collaborate on this project. And so I would definitely recommend this curriculum to other educators for many of the reasons that I've stated and others on the call have stated. But when I think about, when I was a young child and the whole campaign for Stop, Drop, and Roll for fires, right? And so we think about, I don't even know if that program still exists. So couldn't this be, I'm not saying it would be that program, but just something that is built within the curriculum. This is something that all schools do. And I know
like a fire drill.
Exactly. I know that it's needed in some schools, particularly schools that are predominantly comprised of students of color, a little bit more, because the reality of it is those are the ones that oftentimes don't make it home, unfortunately, sometimes due to police misconduct. So anyway, I feel like I want to see this in more schools. I think that would be very beneficial, not only for students, as we've said, but for their families and ultimately for the community. So I just want to see this program in more schools. And I'm looking forward to what Mr. Copeland has already stated. And I think you stated this as well, Lee, but seeing these skills, translate into other areas of their lives. Knowing that I have a voice, knowing that this is not the end all be all because this is what's said, but I'm a citizen, I have a voice, it counts, I have a perspective, and I have resources to support me. And so I'm really hoping that we can build that capacity within our students. And so just having this program in more schools, that's really what I'm looking forward to. And again, thank you for being a part of this program.
Thank you all, definitely. During the Copeland event, one of the educators, Mr. Copeland, maybe it was you, was talking about how in going through the curriculum, you notice that how it seemed that some of the students, their relations to how they were dealing with authority in the school had even shifted a little bit. I can't remember who had mentioned that, but I thought that was important right there, because we're talking about how do we deal with authority if we, as youth, how you deal with authority, but throughout your life, how do you deal with authority that where you're able to protect yourself but also assert your rights at the same time. A lot of people have problems dealing with authority, and either they won't assert their rights and get taken advantage of, or they respond in such a way that authority takes advantage of them, and it becomes detrimental to them. Because I often say the worst thing that can happen is, as parents, we put all our energy into, our little ones so that they can grow up and be happy, healthy, and successful. But one bad incident can derail them, from their life course, either jail or either being killed, during the interaction with an officer. And we want to put our kids in the best situation so that they can return safely to us, and so that they can know that if they have an issue, they have somebody that they can go to, so where they don't have to feel alone out there on the street or out there or wherever they are, and that I got to handle it myself, or I have to, resort to something that causes a reaction that gets them in the worst situation, So we're coming to the end. Melissa, did you have anything you wanted to ask before I start closing out?
No, I'm so happy that everyone was able to join us today, but I didn't have any additional questions, Lee, before we do our theme.
Yes, Mr. Copeland.
I just wanted to add that, like, what you're saying proves that it should be taught at a young age. You see what I'm saying? Because there are police everywhere you go, literally around the world, county to county, city to city. There are police, and what we're teaching is a universal principle. It'll work in Gwinnett County, it'll work in Fulton County, it'll work in Cobb County. So it has to be taught at a young age, because students go on trips, they go cheerleading, football. They're gonna be around police at the football games, any event, parties, anything that you're gonna have some type of authority. So knowing how to do this type of stuff is going to reign somewhere in your life at least once or twice. I guarantee it. You know what I mean? So I just want to say what you're saying proves it should be taught at a young age, because by the time you're in middle school, you may have developed certain habits that you may not really be able to take what we're trying to give. So anyway, I just want to add that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's important. Yeah.
But Dr. Baiden, Dr. Ballenger, Mr. Copeland, look, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you guys. It was a pleasure to be able to collab and work with you all. I'm looking forward to us being able to do to continue this work over this summer, because I really believe, this is just another tool to help communities and individuals with some of these issues that we're dealing with out in society. We're at a critical point, socially, politically, that everything we can do to arm ourselves with knowledge and understanding is going to be important, because there are some forces out here that don't have everyone's best interests in mind. And, we would be doing a disservice if we weren't doing this. So again, thank you all. I appreciate you. Much respect. And Melissa, anything else you need to add? I know I probably got off script about what I was supposed to say.
You're all right. We want to thank our guests again, and that is our time for this evening. If you do have a question, or if you would like to file a complaint or get more information about the ACRB and the services we provide, you can reach us at our website, www.acrbgov.org. Or you can give us a phone call at 404-865-8622. We are located in City Hall, and our office is now open. As you can see, I'm sitting in the office right now. So you can give us a visit if you'd like to come in and discuss your particular complaint. We're on the 9th floor. And I want to thank our guests again. Our next TNT will be May 17th at 6 p.m. So we hope to see you all there. And thank you again. You all have a good night.
Hey, one thing I didn't do, and I'm such a bad host. I didn't ask them if they had anything that they wanted to say at the very end. You guys have anything else you want to add before we close it out? I should have asked you that before we did all the wrapping up stuff, but it's okay. The good thing is this is our show, so we can run over if we want to.
I'll be
Anything-
quick, and I'll just say, let's keep this project in motion. I'm in
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
I
All right.
concur.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.